Souvlaki, a truly delicious wonder of Greece. Today I'm showing you how to make this amazing dish for the next time you get the grill out. So let's get started. We will begin by soaking the skewers in some water to stop them from burning on the grill. You want to do this for at least 1 hour, and to be super safe and organised, you could do this the night before. If you're using metal skewers, you can obviously skip this step. Next, onto the marinade. Here I have 2 sprigs of rosemary, a small handful of thyme, and 3 garlic cloves. For the rosemary, just pull the leaves from the stem. For the thyme, just rub it between your hands to bruise it and get all those flavours released. The smell that hits you when you do this is amazing. And for the garlic, I just like to slice it in half, top to bottom. This way the skin comes off easily. Then just break it between your fingers into the bowl so it also starts to release all those flavours. Then to this add 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. This could also be white wine vinegar. A strong pinch of salt and an equally strong pinch of cracked black pepper. Now get your hand in there and squeeze everything between your fingers. With the salt acting as an abrasive, this is a form of masticating and is bringing all those aromatics to life. If you don't want to use your hand, then use the end of a rolling pin or do this gently in a mortar and pestle. Whatever you choose, just don't skip this step. This is the foundation of our flavour. Okay, place that to one side and let's talk about preparing the chicken thighs. Here I have 3 knives. This one is a boning knife and would be my first choice for most meat preparation. It has a thin but rigid blade so it doesn't bend too much when I apply pressure like this. This knife is what's known as a filleting knife. It also has a thin blade but is a lot more flexible. This would be my second choice for most meat preparation. The third is a regular paring knife or vegetable preparation knife. It has a small rigid blade and is what most home cooks will have at home. So for that reason, I'm preparing the chicken with this knife today. The method is exactly the same no matter which knife you use. Onto the meat. Use a damp cloth or a non-slip mat under your board for safety. Here I have 4 skin-on chicken thighs. 9 times out of 10, I prefer to use thigh over breast. It has a better flavour, it is very tender when cooked right, and is a cheaper cut also. Start by pulling the skin off. It should come away easily just using your hands. I'm leaving the fat on as it helps to keep the souvlaki moist, but you can slice it off if you like. Today we are going to save everything and use it for different purposes, so don't throw anything away. I have 2 future videos in the making on how to use the skin and bones for different things. To debone this thigh, turn it to the opposite side that the skin was on and get the 2 ends of the bone pointing north and south in relation to your chopping board. You don't have to get your compass out. Then push the meat east and west of the bone with your fingers to create tension and just run your knife between the top and bottom of the bone. And once you start to hit the bone, work your way around either side until you have most of it exposed. Then spin the thigh 90 degrees and pinch the bone roughly in the middle and pierce your knife blade under and out the other side and slice through the cartilage. Now this end of the bone is free, lift it up and scrape down the bone with your knife to free up any remaining meat until you start to hit the knuckle at the other end. Then just slice that through with a V-cut like this. That's the bone free. Now lay the thigh flat and feel around for any cartilage and bits of remaining bone. There is always a section of cartilage around where one of the knuckles is, and it's quite easy to feel for. Once you're happy you have just meat remaining, lay the thigh flat again, and to portion it, just try to cut with the natural shape of the thigh, so you end up with evenly sized pieces of chicken. If there are any loose bits like this, then cut them free. I got 6 pieces from that thigh, excluding the small loose piece of meat I cut free. Then just repeat this process with the other thighs until you have a tray like this, with the meat, bones and skin all separate. Now get your marinade and place your chicken meat into it and give it a good mix. Cover that and place it in your fridge for at least 30 minutes and no more than 4 hours. And the bones and the skin I'm going to place in my freezer for later use. Whilst the chicken is marinating, let's make the tzatziki, an essential element to this dish. Start by getting half a cucumber and slice that in half lengthways, then scoop out the seeds with a spoon. Then get a box grater and using the largest holes, grate the cucumber but leaving around 50% of the skin remaining. Add a pinch of salt to the cucumber and mix it well, then place it into a strainer or a colander to drain off some of that water. Whilst that is draining, get 1 clove of garlic. This could be more if you're a fan of garlic, but I recommend 1. Puree this clove and add it to a mixing bowl with 1 tablespoon of red wine vinegar, 250 grams, roughly a cup's worth of thick Greek yoghurt. If you're using low-fat yogurt or something that's thinner than this, then you'll have to put it into a cheesecloth and let it sit for at least a few hours to strain out any excess liquid. otherwise you end up with a really watery tzatziki. I recommend using the full fat version, like this. Mix all that together. Now it's only been around 10 minutes since grating the cucumber, but it's released a lot of its water content. If we had time we could just leave this sitting for longer, but I'm just going to squeeze the last of the juice out with my hand. It's amazing how much of a cucumber is just water. If we skipped this step or didn't get enough of this water out, then the tzatziki would end up being too watery. And if you pair that with a loose and runny yogurt, then it will be a disaster. So don't skip this step and make sure to get the water out of the cucumber. Now get your yogurt mix and add the cucumber, season with cracked black pepper, and mix it all together well. Once mixed, we can see how thick this is. At this stage, we can add the extra virgin olive oil. If yours is looser than this, then add a little less olive oil. Now for the seasoning. I'm adding a small pinch of salt, and that's perfect. It's cooling, slightly acidic with a mellow garlic flavour. This is one version of a traditional Greek recipe. There are many. Popular variations are adding dill and also replacing the vinegar with lemon juice and dicing the cucumber instead of grating. They would all suit this souvlaki recipe, so make whichever you feel. Now back to the chicken. Mine has had the minimum amount of marinating time, 30 minutes, but the outside of the chicken has started to turn ever so slightly milky. This is the vinegar doing its job and starting to break down the muscle fibres on the surface, debatably resulting in a more tender meat. If your chicken has marinated for longer, which I recommend, then this would be more obvious. Pour in some olive oil and give everything a good mix so it's all coated in oil. We didn't do this earlier because the oil would have coated the pieces of chicken, creating a barrier that the flavours of the aromatics would not have got through. Now get your skewers and begin to skewer the chicken. I'm pulling off most of the bits of herbs and garlic as I go, but saving them to one side in the bowl. Pack the chicken onto the skewer really well so everything is tight. The meat will shrink as it cooks, and no one wants a skewer with 3 pieces of dried out chicken on it. So packing it tight will help to keep the meat moist and evenly cooked. Now over to my grill. I live in a 4th floor apartment, so unfortunately I don't have an outside grill yet. So today I'm doing mine on this stovetop version, which I love. But the method is exactly the same for an outside grill, and equally if you want to do this in a frying pan or a skillet. Get your grill evenly hot. Mine is on around a 6 out of 10. We want the meat to char on the outside, but not so much that it burns before the centre is cooked. So in my experience, just above medium heat is where we want to be. Now season the outside with a touch more salt and place them onto the hot grill. Notice I haven't oiled the grill at all. We have oiled the meat, so there is no need. Also, the fat of the chicken thigh will slowly melt and baste the souvlaki as it cooks. I'm a big fan of oiling the meat rather than the pan in most circumstances. It gives much better results. Now get the leftover garlic and herbs and place them on top of the chicken. These are going to cook with the souvlaki and give us the last of their flavour. Leave the skewers to sit and cook on that side for at least 2 minutes. After 2 minutes with some tongs, I'm just going to gently try to lift one of these skewers. As you can see, it's stuck to the grill, so I'm going to leave it to cook for at least another minute. At this stage, do not panic. Do not try and rip the skewer off the grill. It will naturally free itself when it's ready. This could be after 5 or 6 minutes of cooking. As long as the heat is in that medium range and nothing smells like it's burning, then everything will be fine. Trust the chicken. After another 2 minutes of cooking on that side, the chicken has freed from the grill and is ready to be turned. We are going to treat these skewers like they have 4 sides, so a quarter turn each time. Just spread some of the herbs and garlic back over the chicken. Some will fall off and hit the grill. It's all flavour. Then the same process for that side. Cook for 2 minutes, see if it's free from the grill. If it is, a quarter turn again. After 4 quarter turns, we are back to the original side. At this stage, I'm going to pull off as much of the herbs as I can. They have done their job and given us all of their flavour. As we separated the herbs and the garlic from the meat when we did the skewering, then added them back to the meat when we started cooking, they have all stayed separate. If we kept everything stuck to the meat when we started cooking, the two would be one and the burnt herbs would be in the souvlaki. After 10 minutes of cooking, I'm going to probe the centre of the skewers. These are in the early 60s Celsius, 140s Fahrenheit. I want to take these to at least 80 Celsius, 175 Fahrenheit. I like to take chicken thighs and drumsticks to this temperature. For me, this gives the optimal tenderness for short, high-heat cooking. So I'm going to cook them for another 1 to 2 minutes on each side, rotating them in the same way as before so they cook evenly, until my thermometer reads above 80C, 175F. After 6 more minutes of cooking and rotating, 16 minutes total cooking, the skewers are ready to come off and onto a plate or tray, whatever you have. Now they need to rest for at least half the cooking time. For me, that's 8 minutes. This relaxes the meat, resulting in a more tender, juicy eating experience. It's an important step, don't skip it. Whilst your grill or pan is still hot, toast your pittas. I'll leave a link to my recipe for these in the description. They are super easy to make and are 100 times better than anything you can get from a store. The ones I have here are super fresh, so they're still very flexible. If you're using store-bought, then wet the outside of them with a little water before toasting and you'll get a much better, tender pitta. Now for the building. Get a square of baking or wax paper and lay your toasted pitta at the very top. Spoon a generous amount of your tzatziki down the middle. Lay a few slices of tomato over the top of that. Now for the star of the show, the souvlaki. Grip the meat firmly and twist the skewer whilst pulling it free from the meat. Then lay it down the middle of the pitta on top of the tzatziki. Add some finely sliced red onion or shallot for freshness and contrast in flavours. Now for the hardest part of the whole dish, the wrapping. Maybe not necessary, but it does make the whole thing a lot easier to eat. Hold the pitta in one hand and pinch it together, then tuck one side of the paper in and pinch it together some more, and tuck the other side of the paper over that. Tuck the bottom part of the paper under and twist a little, and there you have your souvlaki. This thing is delicious, you guys. It's smoky from the grill, fragrant from the herbs and aromatics, cooling and refreshing from the tzatziki. As always, guys, ingredients lists and links to other videos in the description below. Alright guys, and that's that. Go check out this pita bread recipe, and I'll see you next time.